we have one guy in the room at the moment that has known about it for like 20 years. And myself, I've learned everything I can about IT from Mr. Things, Magnus Melander. He was here quite recently. And quite often he used to mention a company called HMS, and that started to be like, wow, HMS, what company is that, really? So we got super curious, and then it turned out that Per actually knew Nicolas, and we had the opportunity to invite Nicolas to share the HMS story here today. And I was almost a little bit starstruck, I must say. So, super happy that you are here and that you are going to share your earliest stage building this company for us today. And that you actually invented the keys for the industrial internet revolution about some 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That's wow, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh.
Applause!
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So that's right. It's both about very early cooperation between a small new company and established players, and of Internet of Things. And it's actually 25 years, if I should be honest. So I founded the company in '88, and I'll show you what it does. And I was the CEO until we took it from the exam project at the university all the way to a successful listing at the Stockholm Stock Exchange almost 10 years ago. Since then, I am involved in several other connectivity companies, both large ones like Cybercom, when it comes to developing solutions to connect products and big systems, 1,300 engineers. Sigicom, a Stockholm company, connecting devices for measurement, and some smaller companies. And I'm also very interested in the arena to make to create new companies that grow organically, and the terms of that. So I'm in the board of Almi, who supports growing companies and so on, in the Chamber of Commerce of South, and in Chalmers, that also has some initiatives here. So what I came up with was the idea that devices in an automation product, in an automation system, should be able to communicate with each other. This was really early. So the main product was the device that network enabled, for example, an electric motor or a robot or whatever device in an automation system. Later on, we also did products that could connect to different network systems, and also products that connected systems up to the internet. The vision from beginning was pretty simple. After my exam work was done, started a company, I developed the first fiber optic network system that connected devices. I saw that the more electronics you put into a device, the device gets more intelligent. When the device is more intelligent, it will have a higher need to communicate with other devices. And of course, to not only communicate with another device, but to cooperate with other devices without any human interaction. So that was the vision of the company. And then I came to the conclusion that the highest value now, which is in the beginning of 90s, is probably in an industrial robot or electric motor or something like that. The customer is willing to pay the extra premium to connect it to a network and to be able to communicate with others. For example, a car factory could suddenly have robots from ABB and Japanese manufacturers and American robots interact with each other. Often robots are good at different things, like painting or welding or different applications. And of course, it's a very good opportunity if they can talk to each other. So I will take a few examples of HMS and some learnings from this. So first of all, the stages here, founded in '88, directly out of university. I was only 21 years old. It had a self-financed growth, almost the first 10 years. So I brought it to about 20 million in revenues before we took in venture capital. How was that possible? It was possible because we had paying large customers from the very beginning, which is also key. Otherwise, the company wouldn't have existed, I would say. Then we brought in a total of 49 million in external capital when we had revenues about 20. I had been in Japan. I realized the potential was not that these customers needed 1,000 of these modules or even 10,000. I realized they needed 100,000. So on the plane home, I wrote a new business plan, or actually that was the first business plan. I didn't have a business plan from beginning. And I realized I needed to ramp up my development team from 2.5, where I was the half, and my 2 other really skilled guys. And I needed to build a real sales organization. I also realized that to be able to conquer the world on this, I need to have people in Germany, in US, and Japan. So at least 3 subsidiaries over time. So we did that. We executed. We actually didn't use all of the 49 million. We used 34. My own calculation was 25, should be enough. And a good experienced mentor to me said, it always takes double the amount of time, and it takes double the amount of capital that you. So you shouldn't raise 25, you should raise 50. I ended up with 49, and I wasn't completely right, so it was more than the 25 I had estimated, ended up at 34, but it was actually on time, so we were profitable again to my original plan. Then it changed into private equity and a preparation for going public for about 3 years, and then we did our IPO in 2007, which was very successful then. Today the company is almost at 1 billion SEK in turnover. We have sold several millions of these devices that are in most factories in the world. Every time I go to a manufacturing plant, I look around, and somewhere I can see a device where I know the Anybus communication technology is inside. The latest was my new electric car, which is not a Tesla. It's a BMW. In that factory, I found about 300 of my devices. Pretty fun. Anyway. Early enterprise collaboration, I've touched it already, and I'm going to take a few examples and how I did that. I can, of course, elaborate more on these and some lessons learned. So from university at start, actually I had a customer. I didn't have a product yet. I had a prototype, and I wrote an agreement with a fairly small machine builder that if my control system, which was built on networks, would fulfill the specification. It was an LOI, more or less, so there was no real commitment in it. They would change their existing electronics, and they would buy this amount of systems from me. So after 6 months, I started shipping the products and had revenues into the company. And of course, by having a live application, they started exporting their machines. So indirectly, I got applications at very interesting places that I could use as references. And the company started going. I could finance the small development from the profits of the companies. And suddenly, I got a contact with Atlas Copco. And today I can say I'm pretty happy that it was exactly Atlas Copco at that time. It could have been ABB, or it could have been some other big Swedish company. My luck, I have realized now, was that Atlas Copco is unusually decentralized large corporation, so it might be a little bit easier to get into one of their subsidiaries or divisions. Anyway, that order, we were only 4 employees, so I managed to build the trust that we will be able to deliver on this. I had the core technology. They had been looking at this machine where my fiber optic, very nice communication system revolutionized how you could build the machines and have the devices connected. You could build it in modules, ship it easier, and so on. And the two guys from Atlas said, this is the future, how to build automation systems. And this is exactly what we need to be able to connect our different products up to control systems and build more flexible and better machines. It took quite a long time, although I would say they were really quick. And when I thought everything was done. The pricing was done, how much they would pay for the adoptions for their special needs. It would also finance that I could employ the people I needed to be able to develop this. Then they called in the purchase department. For me, I think 25 years old, I wasn't used to that. Luckily, I had a mentor who had been in a big company, and I said, how am I going to handle this? They have so many questions, and really, if I don't get this order now and we start working, and I said, actually, we have already started to develop this, although we don't have the order in our hand, so it would be a complete catastrophe if I don't get this order. Anyway, I came through that purchasing process and got the order. They were reasonable, and I think we were reasonable, and it came to a good deal. That, in fact, opened the door to Japan. And Atlas Copco had a partnership with a company called Hitachi that made lots of things, and they had a division that made control systems. And my key guy at this Atlas division in Ulricehamn, a fairly small Atlas company, he said, I have these 5 Japanese decision makers here. Nicolas, you're down in Halmstad. We have 2 hours left before they go on the flight from Gothenburg back to Japan. I think you would like to meet them, and I think actually they need your technology because your network systems are about 100 times faster than what they have. Okay, I sat up, did a presentation. I thought I really need to show them some hardware. The problem was, as a small company, I had sold everything we had. So during the night, I soldered the PCBs by hand. I was up very late, and I went up to this meeting. The Japanese persons were really the right ones. It was top decision makers. They were really impressed of the software that could make these things communicate, but also from the hardware. And when it went around the table, one of the Japanese production guys said, he looked at it and said, this is actually pretty good. Which factory in Japan is manufacturing this? Because in his mindset, electronics like that, you could just not do that anywhere outside Japan at this time. Surface mounted and so on. And I said, oh, that's done in our factory in Halmstad, which was not very big. Anyway, long negotiation, we got the order, and Hitachi instead helped us to other customers in Japan, and Japan became our biggest market for 15 years, and a very profitable market as well. The third example is a little bit later, when we really launched the modules that look like this. Back here the cards were bigger, and so. The first company that used this was not a huge Swedish company. It was, again, a small machine builder. So you don't have to go to the really biggest companies. That could be an idea, depending on what you do. But it can also be a cooperation with a small and medium-sized enterprise. However, that company down in south of Sweden had a really big customer, which was General Motors. They were automating the end process of building the car to make it fully rust protected in a fully automatic machine that did that in 50 seconds. To do that, they needed communication systems to replace all the cabling. So by that small company, I got applications in 3 car factories in full production. And of course that reference to use that later on in Japan and other places, although the Japanese manufacturers are not very impressed by European or American quality, it was a really good reference anyway to get a foot into the door. And later on it led to ABB, robotics, electric motors and so on, and about 1,000 customers that use these modules in their devices. And somewhere here, when we did the first internet-connected automation device, I still argue with Martin Gren, the founder of Axis in Lund, that does networked cameras, if HMS and my applications was the first real IoT solution, or if his cameras were it. We still argue that when we meet once in a while. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop here and instead continue in the panel discussion. Thank you.